Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing series, the Unported playlist, where we take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. And today we're taking a look at Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, released in 1993 by Capcom, and it's on the CP System Dash, or 1.5, which is basically an arcade board between the CPS and the CPS2. It shares similarities with both boards, but the main point is that it's never been ported, and that's probably down to licensing issues because this is based on a comic book series. And let me tell you, it is one of the best beat-em-up games of all time, and it's one of the most unfortunate things that you can't actually play this at home, even as like a downloadable Xbox Live Arcade game or on the Switch or anything like that, because it definitely deserves to be played by a lot of people. And because that CP System dashboard does have a suicide battery in it as well, it is one of those games that is becoming, I would say, a little bit rarer. You can definitely still pick a copy up if you want to buy one, although it's going to run you a decent amount of money. But it is one of those boards that you do need to worry about because it has that battery that will kill the board if you don't swap it out every once in a while. So it's one of those games. It's awesome. It's rarer. The hardware is definitely becoming less and less prevalent out there. You can still find one, but you're going to pay for it for sure. But the game is just legitimately one of the best beat-em-ups I've ever played. And it's totally like a wild world you're dealing with because it is based on that comic book series. You know, you're basically going to be fighting dinosaurs shortly. Not to spoil it too much, but if you've never played the game before, I mean, dinosaurs is definitely in the title, as is Cadillacs, and it's just a really weird mashup. But you'll see here we're on the first boss fight, and all the sprites look really nice, the backgrounds are good. It's definitely not CPS2 quality, but it looks awesome, especially for something that came out in 1993. And you'll see now that we're definitely fighting that dinosaur along with the boss. And in the game, some of the dinosaurs are going to be aggressive towards you, and others are going to be passive unless they're hit. You'll see when you hit that dinosaur, it went from red to green, or sorry, from green to red. And you can accidentally aggro the dinosaurs. And you'll definitely be fighting T-Rex, Stegosauruses, and I mean, dinosaurs aren't really my knowledge base, but a lot of different varied creatures. And as far as the gameplay is concerned, you know, control-wise, the gameplay's awesome. You have a great move set, you have multiple characters you can pick from. You get little story vignettes in between stages, but honestly, it's an arcade game. What exactly are you expecting? And you see me driving in that sweet-looking Cadillac right there. Now, the funny thing is, there is a sequel to this game on the Sega CD, and it is definitely not worth playing. I own it because it came with my Sega CD, but I highly do not recommend you play it. It is terrible, but really, these are the games that we got in the Cadillacs and Dinosaurs series. And you'll see that dinosaur there is named Mac, and the funny thing is, they all do have names. And we get some good pickups. You get Uzis, you get shotguns, you get hunting rifles, you get dynamite and grenades. There's plenty of power-ups to be able to diversify the gameplay. And you'll see there that T-Rex is sleeping, but if he does get aggroed, you're going to have to fight him before you move on. And he got kicked by that fat enemy right there, Hammer T, not sure what that name is, and now we have to fight him as well. Or her, it's Shavat, so maybe it's a female T-Rex. I really don't know how you would sex a dinosaur. Honestly, that's a really strange sentence, I'm not even sure why I said it. But it's definitely a game that you do want to play, you know, any way you can. Definitely it's easy to emulate. If you're an arcade collector, you can pick the board up. It's just JAMA, so they're really easy to run. And it definitely has a great vibe to it, and I really love the soundtrack. That early Q-Sound chip is still in the CPS Dash, so you're going to get some stereo separation and some otherwise interesting audio effects that were just kind of coming on the scene in 1993. When it comes right down to it, it is one of those quintessential classic beat-em-ups that if you like the genre, you definitely have to play. I would say that I don't love the whole dinosaur aspect. It's a fun game and I really enjoy it, but I prefer more of the fantasy Golden Axe style games or things like that, but I can still recognize this game for being really awesome. And this guy definitely needs to get beat up because he shouldn't be butchering dinosaurs. And you don't really ever get explained why there's dinosaurs in the game. I mean, if you read the comic books, I never have. I'm sure there's more information out there for you. But really, honestly, in this sort of scenario, you just kind of have to go along with it. One of my complaints of the game, though, is it seems like some of the enemies do love to hang out just off-screen, and that's kind of a complaint I have about a lot of beat-em-ups, but Cadillacs and Dinosaurs seems to do it more than most, where sometimes when you hit an enemy off-screen, they're going to swing at you without being able to be seen, and it can be hard to hit them. It's a small complaint, but, you know, as we talk about these games, I do kind of like to reference what's going on and how I feel about them, and I would say that that's something that I don't love, but it's pretty easy to forgive, because it is just so much fun to play. And now we're moving on to the Desert of Death here, and I do love that spinning, sort of like running high knee. It's a really effective way to knock your enemies back and kind of gain control of the whole situation. And now we get to ride in this car. You get these little car sequences. It's basically like a freebie gimme sort of stage because you're not really going to take much damage at this point in time while you're in the car. But it does diversify the gameplay up just enough so that when you finally feel like, hey, maybe I've been punching and kicking too much for too many minutes, you get a different gameplay scenario, or you're just going to be a little bit more active. And you'll see here the boss hog, and that's kind of funny because it's from Dukes of Hazzard. I don't know if that was intentional or not. You can hit him with your motorcycle, or hit his motorcycle with the car to knock him off. And I do appreciate that they've just diversified it a little bit. But that really is Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. It's a super fun game. What I'm going to let you do is I'm going to stop talking for a bit because the soundtrack and the sound effects are awesome with that Q sound chip. Enjoy some of the gameplay, and I'll come back in just a minute or so and finish up the video on Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Now we're out of that car, and let's finish off Boss Hog here. So now that you've gotten a sense of what that soundtrack sounds like and what the sound effects are, we just got a one up there. The game is definitely fair. I didn't burn through too many virtual credits playing this, so I would say that if you actually found it in an arcade, you might not spend more than $10 to beat the game. And as far as arcade games are concerned, that is definitely what I would consider quite fair compared to some of the other games I've played in my arcade history. I do love that the backgrounds here, you get a little bit of animation in them. You have what I assume to be molten metal or lava coming out of those pipes. They're not the most animated backgrounds. You saw a lot more of that on the CPS2 when Capcom refreshed the hardware and upgraded it. But it definitely has a really nice look. Those backgrounds have some good depth in them. And all the, enemy sprites and your character sprite, they all look really good when you see those fire effects when you use the torch. So I would say there's definitely a lot of care and consideration put into the game. And that's something that Capcom did with all of their arcade games. They always looked and sounded great. Some better than others, but they always had a baseline quality to them that you could expect when you saw Capcom's name on a game, that you were going to get something quality. You may not have loved it as much as a different experience, but you knew you were going to enjoy it. And now we're just in Dinosaur Alley here. And it does get pretty intense when you have to fight the dinosaurs along with the enemies, and you don't want to accidentally hit the dinosaurs like I just did, because like I said, once you aggro them, you're going to have to fight them before you move on. So it's almost like a penalty situation where you want to try to avoid them, and that can be relatively hard. You'll see there I just got chomped and thrown by that dino, so it's something you do want to avoid. But that's basically Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. It's a completely wild game. I mean, you'll definitely enjoy it more if you have some love or if you've read some of the comics for it. But if you never have and you enjoy beat-em-ups or classic arcade games, you're still going to have a ton of fun with it because the fighting's great, the controls are great, the artwork's awesome, you get different types of weapons to diversify the gameplay, and 4 completely different characters that you can play as, so you can kind of, diversify your gameplay up. I usually stick with one character when I do these playthroughs versus showing all 4. It's just the style that I like, but you definitely get a lot more variety in there. But do I recommend you play it? Absolutely. If you're an arcade collector and you want to spend the money on it, it's definitely something I would add to my collection and probably will at some point in the future. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But we really appreciate you guys watching. If you could do us a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It takes us a lot of time and energy to make each one of these episodes, and we really appreciate your guys' support. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I like to answer each and every one of them if I have time, because I do love talking about these games, not just making the videos. But we will be back next Sunday with another episode in our Unported playlist, and we'll be back on Tuesday and Friday as well with episodes and other series. Otherwise, we have beaten the boss, and we really hope you enjoy this, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.